Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishna Nair, and here basically we are talking about the topic that is the earthquakes. Basically, in this basically we are talking about some topic basically that says basically that earthquake basically can happen anytime basically. So that anytime basically somebody is basically uh, somebody told that basically this basically is somebody is doing some experiment basically. Experiment means basically we can say not experiment basically we can say uh, it you can say it's a possibility basically you can say possibilities. For example, one person told that basically in this world basically lots of politician peoples are there basically, lots of old maharaja, lots of people says that lots of old maharaja and their mantris. For example, Akbar Birbal, lots of people say that Akbar Birbal also basically still exist. Their basically body has been converted into the human clone basically. Maharaja Gaikwad, Sayajirao Gaikwad also basically still exists. Lots of people says basically that basically real is not that basically it's but the NASA and ISRO basically literally basically say that basically this type of thing is there basically. If you read the website of NASA ISRO, somebody were there basically they have written something basically. From that basically I tracked this actually, and lots of people says that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, his body basically has been cloned. Maharaja Shahajira Gaikwad human body is cloned. So that basically are basically um power basically. That basically are power basically. That's basically a 300 400 year old basically. That is basically human clone basically. That are basically cloned basically you can say. Their body basically never basically going to die, and they basically are cloned. So that basically is different thing basically. But there might be something basically behind this basically. Nobody do like that basically, right? There might be some reason basically, might be some reason, some universe satellite group basically, the universe group basically, and satellite group basically. Their age basically what would be? Mostly their age would be 3,000 year, 4,000 year, 5,000 year, 6,000 year, 7,000 year. Minimum age would be like this only basically. They have seen basically 100 times world end basically. They have seen basically the Earth planet ended 100 times basically. They have seen that basically. The scene basically of ending the Earth planet basically. And they basically know that basically which possibility will end the world. And here the possibility is only going to end the world. Mark my word basically. So one person told that basically few people says that basically the first city which is going to end. Few people, that basically I am not that people. First city which is going to end, and the last city which is going to end from this world basically, that possibility basically they have found it. How basically that basically they only basically know. Few basically the World Bank people basically say that basically. That basically very rare people might be telling that, but that possibilities are basically there basically. That's why basically the old people basically still exist basically. There might be some possibility basically. Otherwise, basically, why basically the old people, uh, um why the basically old people basically body is still basically is a human cloning, and then basically still basically they are having their life. There might be some reason. Money is only the not the reason basically. Money is not the reason basically. For example, Maharaja people basically have lots of money, so that is only not the reason basically. Money is only not the reason basically. Lots of people say that Dhirubhai Ambani is so rich person basically. His body can be human clone basically, or might possible that his same body basically has been changed with the human souls basically. Lots of people says that basically. Lots of people says basically. Here basically money is not the power basically. Money basically lots of people basically, but only money doesn't matter basically. His power basically matters. That means he is up to that level basically. He must get the second birth basically. For example, Jesus Christ basically. Lots of people says that Jesus Christ still exists. because his power is up to that level. Lots of people says basically that basically I don't know basically that basically NASA basically ISRO basically their website basically says that basically that like this basically concept is there basically mostly basically when I read long before basically that time basically it was there. Currently basically it's not there or basically that I don't know basically because lots of things basically they keeps on changing basically lots of things basically they keeps on changing lots of things basically they keeps on changing that's very dangerous basically the things basically they keeps on changing daily or basically monthly that's very dangerous actually if anybody can understand this then basically it's very deep basically so that's basically the people basically who died basically they still exist that NASA Israel has literally told that basically that this type of thing is basically there like Akbar Birbal was one Jodi basically they basically still exist basically up there Jodi basically is there or that basically is not that basically that story basically that I can't say basically so here basically what are the thing basically which we connected that is the story basically of each and every people basically their story and their if the story is generated then basically 100% the energy is going to generate that is by default so that energy basically are handling each and every balancing of the each and every building basically same way basically the Microsoft energy is there right so Microsoft energy basically assume that 5 crore people basically are connected with this Microsoft energy they basically have generated set of metrics basically for example if building has to handled building have basically is supposed to handle there basically any basically category type of people basically are staying businessmen engineers doctors normal person hardworking person any people basically engineering software engineer software professional project manager CEO company owner software companies like this each and every people basically exist for that basically they have created metrics here literally basically so that metric just they have to dump into the near after building basically if they get the contract basically and they basically don't get the contract they basically creates the building basically up to that level basically they are basically because Microsoft is top 10 basically businessman right top 10 richest person basically so if top 10 richest person basically he can create the city also na, basically Microsoft city and mostly in USA basically there might be lots of city basically which are basically created by that group only basically because Microsoft energy equal to data and data equal to anything basically it can be human needs it can be foods it can be fruits it can be human construction materials sorry building construction materials and human construction material also basically you can say that is the human clone basically material and human souls basically so like this basically there are lots of things basically which basically nobody can able to track also and mostly basically each and everything basically which you do that generates the log file one person told that basically in earth planet basically whatever we do basically that generates something here then energy is what basically that is log file na, basically of our self basically we are human basically our energy is generating from the from our body our brain is generating the energy our eye is generating the body each and everything basically is generating the energy our stomachs basically are generating the body energy that's basically the data basically that is the log file of the and that log file basically is the system basically for set of groups basically that are energy company power company and nuclear power company so that is very dangerous actually yeah. So lots of people say that basically we have kept the backup of the earth planet basically that can be any planet basically that basically name basically they were never going to say basically but earth planet backup is there basically that is 100% sure basically. So one person told that basically is the refresh is required here basically then into that 100%. That's why basically every time basically I say basically that education energy basically has generated 20% global and mostly basically if I say that global warming, that is somebody basically might have tracked that world basically might end. That's why the global warming basically concept basically might have basically introduced. That means the person basically who introduced the global warming, he basically 100% know that world might end. So he might be trying to save the world basically. But people basically don't listen anyone basically. That everybody knows basically. So global warming basically things basically gets ignored basically. Gets ignored basically. So that's basically the difference basically. That's not our problem basically. That's not our problem basically. So Delhi basically is the best example of global warming. Lots of people says that Haryana basically is doing the firing basically. But in real basically few firing basically few paper basically or few basically the material of the farmer basically if they fire, then it will reach to Delhi and it will create the this type of pollution basically. If that thing basically will create the problem basically pollution basically, then the things basically you are eating basically, that is also generated from that only basically. That means you want to say that is also generating the sorry the pollution basically. That's basically uh, that's few things basically are getting covered basically. Basically in army fighting basically there is one thing basically concept basically covering fire basically, so that basically I can exit from there basically. So this is covering firing basically, you can say, in army language basically. In army language that is called as a covering firing basically. So exactly the same thing basically, it's this. Exactly it's the same thing basically. Exactly it's the same thing basically. It's a covering firing basically. So basically it's a education basically error basically. Education error is there basically, that basically you can't basically. So basically doctors basically says that basically we are trying to sort out their things basically, but up to what level we can sort out basically. To get the doctor degree basically how much hard work basically you have to do, that basically you also might be knowing 90 percentage is the minimum basically. Then only basically then also basically you don't get the admission basically. So up to what level basically we can do the hard work basically. So something basically you also have to do basically. So that is the global warming error basically, you solve that basically. You solve that. So mostly basically the World Health Organization basically are connected with each and every basically you can say sectors basically. In IT sector also basically there might be some error basically. That is we have already discussed. 20 percentage error basically is from South software industry side basically, and few percentage basically are why, because they have taken the data of educational industry basically. So that's basically by default they will take the basically reason the repeating basically task is you can't create the repeating task in the world basically. Otherwise basically the weight will increase. If one person is creating the repeating task, then another will create like this basically the weight management basically will get calculated basically. Then basically the weight management industry will come into the picture and basically they said why you have created this duplicate. That's basically when industry busy. So weight management basically is also so if weight management industry basically they can't create the global warming industry. Global warming industry they can create, right? Then 1% rule, that basically how basically we can create global warming industry here basically. That's basically that's global warming industry is equal to refresh basically. That basically 100% you have to do basically. The basically 100% you have to do basically. 100% you have to do basically. 20% is educational, 20% is the software basically. That's basically the major thing basically. And here the main thing is first basically you have to solve the educational data. Then only basically you can solve the basically the thing basically. For that basically without satellite group basically help it's not possible basically. Without satellite help basically Earth planet can create basically Earth planet basically can create only basically. But it's approved by only basically the satellite group basically. Because in this world basically single grass also basically if you have to change the color of green from brown, Sorry, green color is the color of the grass. If you want to change that color of the green color grass to brown color, that also basically require the permission, yeah, of the universe basically. If one of the basically the scientists basically told that basically I have basically had this here basically, I basically love brown color grass here basically, so I have basically created it. But that basically if it will basically grow, but until basically it's not approved by the government, sorry, the universe people basically, satellite group basically, that will not work basically. If they don't like, then basically it will not work basically. If it's not basically, then it will not work basically. So few people says that basically earth planet basically is um each and every big people basically having the punishment basically in earth planet basically. Few people literally told that also basically. Lots of people say that they are very rich people here basically. Just see basically their lifestyle basically. But the thing basically they are suffering from that basically many less people might be knowing. They are basically close people only might be knowing. Yeah. For example, uh, ONGC basically, or Reliance basically, or IPC, or basically the AIMS Oxygen. They basically assume that they have introduced around 12 lakh human souls basically. Just taking an example basically. Human clone nahi, human souls basically. That's basically given name as an Atma. They created it. Whatever basically the data would be, that for that basically they created it. Now basically what are the things going to happen? They have to allocate it, they have to do the future plan. They have the future data basically. For example, ONGC has created around 8 lakh or say 9 lakh basically human clones, human souls basically. That means 8 crore people already they have covered it basically. So this is the basically the dangerous sales basically. This is the most dangerous sales basically, you can say. Most dangerous basically. Because souls is basically the main thing basically. They have created it. Lots of people says that basically, yeah, if we can generate the human souls na, then basically entire business is in our hand basically. Yeah. पूरा जो business है, that would be in our hand basically. Then he told that yes, yeah, basically it's correct. So lots of people basically jumped into the human souls also basically. It's correct, yeah, basically 100% it's correct. So they jumped into that also basically. But without basically the satellite approval, basically you can start the human cloning system, human souls, no, basically. So they have succeeded. Then only basically are doing. They are creating 6 lakh, 8 lakh, 9 lakh, 10 lakh, 1 crore. Like this, basically the human souls. Basically, ONGC is very old. Basically, that means their human souls basically are already approved by the satellite group. Uh, Reliance basically, IPCL, they are also basically old. AIMS Oxygen is old than the Reliance basically. They are basically older than the Reliance basically. Then lots of people say that यार हम ह्यूमन सोल्स तक तो पहुंच गए. We basically already reached to human souls basically. Can we basically create satellites basically? Yeah. So that basically we can only basically whatever satellite basically is created na, basically we can do one thing basically, we can create few space in universe, and there basically we can allocate that human souls basically. Yeah. How is this idea basically? That 5 crore people basically वाला जो idea है ना, that we can implement not here basically. Then he told that basically yes, here basically that basically you can implement basically. So create few universe basically, design few universe basically, then basically dump your this 5 crore basically human souls basically which is allocated by ONGC or basically some company basically, and give the approval by the that satellite basically which is connected with that universe basically, where the basically set of planets galaxy are going to be created by this human souls basically. That is basically the human clone, sorry, the human body has been also generated of the 5 crore people basically. because they have dumped the human souls basically into the ladies' bodies, and then basically they have created the birth also basically. Yeah? So how is this basically this idea basically? Then one person basically told, yeah, yeah, it's great, yeah, basically. You want to take over everything or what basically? You want to take everything or what? Like this basically he told that basically, yeah, humans also basically we have done, yeah, basically. Then he told that basically entire business basically we have covered already basically 5 crore people basically are going to be in our boundary market only, yeah, basically. Business market is basically this 5 crore is of our only basically, because we have created their human souls basically, yeah. Then he told that great, yeah, basically. Great basically achievement basically. Great achievement basically. The great achievement by the energy and the power company basically, yeah. They have already covered the basically business here basically. They have already covered basically the business. So basically how this everything is designed, entire business basically, that also we will discuss basically. But here basically we are discussing in next video only basically we'll discuss the how basically little bit basically. But in last basically point, that is 70 number point basically, that we will discuss in detail basically. So one person told that basically this 5 crore people basically are connected with the earthquakes basically. Then they told us yes basically it's connected with the earthquake. Then he told that basically how basically you can say. So one writer basically who's basically the writing of the human souls basically, they told that basically we are writing, we are basically writing stable data generation, unstable data generation. Two types of basically data we are writing from this 5 crore human body, which they are going to generate. So according to that, basically the earthquake is going to come. Earthquake is not going to come. But here basically we can't uh, boundary the stories basically. Why? Because in Earth planet basically 5 crore people can connect anyone basically. You can't boundary that particular 5 crore basically, that you are not supposed to speak this person, you are not supposed to eat this, you are not supposed to drink that. You can't control it. Lots of people say that we can. We have basically already designed in the human souls, right? Then they told us basically human souls basically if you are designed, but the possibilities basically are getting generated. Na? Possibilities are basically getting generated. So in that basically the changes basically might happen basically. That basically might happen basically. Possibilities is happen basically. So then he told that basically yes basically it's might possible basically. But it will be in boundary of the human soul's data basically. It will be boundary of human soul's data basically. So that is very dangerous basically. So business world basically. This is basically business world only, no basically. This basically is the business world basically. They have created human souls from assume they have created human souls from just assume basically 3 lakh planet energy. So one person told that basically this plastic basically is created from which energy basically, that you know, that is basically from 3 lakh planet basically, which the boundaries basically there. So from there basically we have taken few 500 planets energy basically. From that basically we have created plastic here basically. Oh, that's great here basically. That's great. So you want to say that basically you create one city basically, that is your boundary, and dump the materials according to that human souls created by you. That's business of the entire city basically. So basically one person told that basically you should be you should basically give the lecture of MBA basically. Yeah, you should give the lecture of MBA basically. This basically never basically basically might have thought, and also basically might basically it's very difficult to thought also basically that this type of thing also basically is possible. Then he told them. Then Sunil Arnay told that basically yes basically just see basically he covered the entire city only basically. So this is basically the main business basically of the human clone base. Sorry, human souls base. Human clone, that is totally different basically data basically. Here we are talking about the human souls equal to created from 3 lakh planets. So this is the business basically. This is the business that ONGC company basically is doing that business basically, and they have created lots of cities. That basically, I am not telling them basically. They basically have already created. So this is the basically the business basically which they have already covered. So that basically nowadays Reliance is covering, IPCL is covering, and Ames Oxygen is already covered, and they are also basically might be covering. They also might be covering basically. Then one person told that basically everything basically nowadays digital basically, right? Digital. Then he told that yes, basically it's totally digital basically. But digital means equal to what? The information which you have given to the digital industry, that is to the computer, that much only is digital. Na? Then he told that yes, yeah, basically dangerous. You actually should take the MBA lecture basically, because this type of thing basically is not in the MBA book also basically. That's the way basically you can do the business basically. So like this basically next video basically we are going to see a little bit more about this only which basically we have discussed.